what's happened after Blair is the professionalization
Yeah.
of politics. So they go to university and they get a job as an MP, right? And then because of the way the fiat currency works, the fiat system, it allows people who midwits, as Tom Longo says, complete midwits, like Ursula von der Leyen, like Friedrich Merz, like Macron, like Keir Starmer, like Rishi Sunak, who have no talent, no acumen, no skill, no expertise, to be bribed and placed or blackmailed and placed into power, and they'll take it because that's their only way. They're not going to rise up because of their talents, because they don't have any.
Yeah.
Traveling to a restrictive country with internet censorship? A VPN is the answer. And surf the internet with no restrictions.
When tyranny becomes law, rebellion becomes a duty. So said Thomas Jefferson. Go to bit.ly/lawful tax protest or bit.ly/make war history and find out why it is a criminal offence to pay central government or local government taxes in the UK. And let's make war history.
Welcome to the Delingpole. Crypto Rich is your pseudonym.
Yes, it is my pseudonym.
Explain to me that you don't want to be known by your real name. Can you say, well, you've got a job, haven't you, where if your identity were revealed, it would, although surely people can track you down and expose you and destroy your career anyway, can't they?
They could do that. So my parents, forward thinking as they were, they didn't name me Crypto Rich when I was born.
No.
Many years ago. I work as a child protection social worker.
Right.
And when I first started my channel in April 2017, all I did was cover crypto. Not to worry. April 2017, when was it? Yeah, April 2017, all I did was cover crypto. Right. And but as life got more interesting with the Brexit vote, I voted for Brexit, and then lockdown, it got even more interesting. And after 6 weeks, I stopped following all the guidance and stuff and did my own thing.
Yeah.
So my channel has become more and more political, and some of the views that I hold aren't common currency within child protection social work. Plus, also, I've been found by families that I've worked with, by fathers that I've worked with as a child protection social worker. And I don't want the families that I work with necessarily to know that their social worker is crypto rich.
No, well, quite. Have you got exceptionally good skin? You look like a. I've just been watching this alien Earth thing on what is it? FX channel, I think. It's the TV prequel to Alien, and you look like something from the future, or is that just my imagination?
James, it could be your flattery. It could be my fabulously good looks. It could be that Zoom is touching up my features.
Is it?
It could be that your eyes are distorted.
Is it touching up your features? Because your hair looks sort of perfect, and your skin looks like very, very, bizarrely smooth.
Yes. Well, one of the things that I do is I try and get as much sun as I possibly can without any sunscreen. And I've had a lot of sun the last few weeks or so, and that's very, very good for you, because everything they tell us is good for us is bad for us, and everything they tell us is bad for us is good for us. And just take care of my health, I suppose. And thank you very much. I brushed my hair before I came. Thought, can't turn up on James with bedhead.
You're the anti Boris Johnson, who deliberately cultivates the dishevelled look as part of his. I was reading him yesterday. Unfortunately, we take newspapers because my wife still reads newspapers, and I was reading him on the Ukraine, and he was sort of harumphing about what a terrible. He was harumphing about how emetic it was that Trump was treating with this awful dictator and blah blah blah, all sorts of things you would imagine Boris Johnson saying. And I was thinking, what's really emetic, Boris, is when you went out on the orders of your controllers to see Zelensky and order him not to sign any form of peace deal with Russia, even though it was in the interests of both countries. And thus you condemned the hundreds and, well, certainly thousands, possibly hundreds of thousands of young men in Ukraine and Russia to having horrible deaths, probably being droned by some
James.
girl controlling the drones in Moscow.
Yeah, James. It's absolutely horrific. Absolutely horrific. If I can just come back on a couple of points in there, right? So I think when he refers to the dictator, I think he's referring to the one who's made it illegal for people to speak Russian, arrested Russian Orthodox priests, closed down Russian Orthodox churches, cancelled the elections. That's the dictator, right? The one that we're supporting with our, well, you and I aren't supporting, but our tax money or whatever is going to support. And then the other thing, James, I just want to use your platform. I'm involved with an anti-war legal tax protest. And it's almost 2 years now. It's probityco.com is the website. You can also go to bit.ly/makewarhistory. And I'm using the Recognition of Trust Act 1987, the International Criminal Court Act 2001, the Terrorism Act 2000, which makes it a criminal offense for any person to give any money directly or indirectly that's going to be used for terrorism, genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity as defined by Parliament. So it's not whether I think what's happening in Gaza or Ukraine is genocide. No, it's what Parliament says. And what Parliament has done is taken the international conventions against genocide and against funding terrorism and made it into domestic law, domestic statute.
Well, that's interesting. I've read about people talking about this,
Yes.
But you've tried it.
I'm actually engaged in it. So I had a small capital gains tax bill. I told HMRC how much I owe them, and then I sent them a trust, a deed of trust. And you can download these documents from the probityco.com website. And what the trust says is, as the settlor, I'm giving the money to HMRC as the primary beneficiary. HMRC can have the funds provided that they will get released, provided they can demonstrate that they're not in violation of the International Criminal Court Act or the Terrorism Act. The International Criminal Court Act, there's a section in there which says that this binds the Crown. So HMRC has to abide by that law. Then also the Terrorism Act, the Supreme Court has ruled that military and quasi-military activities of the British government, of the British military, even when approved by Parliament, violate the Terrorism Act. So I said to them, look, this is all you've got to do. Demonstrate that none of the money that I'm going to be used is going to be used for genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity and terrorism, or for funding those activities. Because if I give you money for that, I'm breaking the law.
Yeah.
You're breaking the law by asking me for those funds. And the Terrorism Act is such that if you ask for money that's going to be used for terrorist activities, I'm breaking the law if I don't report you to the police. So I gave them a couple of months to demonstrate. They weren't able to demonstrate this.
Did they reply?
Yeah, they replied and they said you have to pay tax. I said, I understand that, but I also have to abide by these statutes, and so do you. Please provide me with exemptions in case law or in statute that capital gains tax and the activities of HMRC aren't covered. And they've said things to me like, oh, well, you need to speak to your MP if you want to change government policy and stuff. I said, I don't want to change government policy. I'm talking about enforcing existing statutes. There's nothing to change. Just follow the law. And it's just this back and forth, back and forth. Now, what's happened is that in terms of the trust, the money goes to a second beneficiary. I never sent them any money. I sent them a copy of the trust form. And the secondary beneficiary can be me, it can be anybody, it could be you, it could be whoever I designate. Now, trusts are really, really old. And the 1987 Recognition of Trust Act binds the Crown. So HMRC have to honour trusts. And the intention of my trust was not to avoid or evade taxes, but to ensure full statutory compliance by myself and by HMRC. Now, one of the things I know as a child protection social worker, because I'm in the court arena with regards to the Children's Act.
Yeah.
And if I'm challenged by a parent who says to me, look, you can't see my children without my consent. And I say, you're absolutely right. I cannot see your children without your consent, except for this, when this situation applies. And here's the reference. Here's the statute that says I can. They've not at any point given me any citation in case law or statute that says that they're exempt that taxes are exempt from the International Criminal Court Act or the Terrorism Act, or that they're exempt from the Recognition of Trust Act.
Right.
Right. Now, I think you agree with me on this, James. I don't want our money that the government is squeezing out of us to be used as a grift with the blood of people in Gaza and Israel and Russia and Ukraine and Yemen. I want that money at home being used to take care of British people.
I agree with everything you say, and I'm sure that everyone watching this is going to feel the same way. And I must say, you're making me feel slightly guilty. Well, maybe that's too strong a word, but I'm aware that the only way we are going to defeat. I mean, obviously we've got God. God's
Yes.
got a kind of key role to play in all this. But on an individual level, what can we actually do, we awake people, to fight this corrupt system? Well, we're not going to we're not going to man the barricades, because they've got a monopoly of violence, our enemies, and they want violence. But what we should be doing is using the system against them, trying to keep on to what we have. So we should always be using cash, and I don't always use cash. We should be using methods like the one you're using to challenge the illegal actions by the government. So I'm just very interested in well, A, that you're promoting this, and B, I'm interested to hear how successful you've been. I mean, have they threatened you with bailiffs? Have they?
What they did do is they referred me onto a couple of debt collection agencies. I wrote to the debt collection agencies and I said, I'm in dispute with HMRC. Do you have a properly executed, fully compliant court order that allows you to make this claim against me? Because what they just wrote to me and said, can you get in touch? Because we want to make arrangements for you to pay, because we're collecting on behalf of HMRC. And I said, well, do you have a court order that says that you can make this claim against me? Otherwise, James, if you give me your address, I'm going to send you a letter saying, look, please give me some money. I'm collecting on behalf of somebody else.
Yeah.
What? And then they left me alone. At no point have HMRC threatened to take me to court. At no point. And I think they actually don't want to, because the law is so crystal clear and watertight. Like I said earlier, right? If a parent asks me about the limits to my powers and I have an exemption, I will tell them straight away, because then I'm free to act. They haven't provided me an exemption. They have, in case law or in statute, they've skirted around the whole issue. Now, is it ultimately going to be successful or not? I don't know. But it does slow the system down. And what happens with statist systems is they get so large and overbearing that it becomes too uneconomical to maintain, and the whole thing falls apart and crushes. So, it's like these tiny little actions. And I'll tell you in a second what's happened to them. And James, thank you so much for this opportunity I didn't know what we were going to talk about for me to, but actually say this.
I didn't know. Let's tell people how this came about. I was just in a Twitter chat with EM
Burlingame,
and he said, you've got to talk to this guy, Crypto Rich. So presumably, had you done a podcast with him or something?
I've done a few podcasts with him, because I also cover politics and stuff, and the role of the City of London, which is what he gets into in the financial kill chain.
Of course, the city. Are you? So, you sound quite clued up on stuff for a child protection type person.
Yes, I like to think so. I'm sure there's many things I'm ignorant about. But if I can go back to the anti-war thing, please, right?
Yeah.
It's like a little discrete section. So, so not once have they threatened to take me to court.
Yeah.
Because I always had the option, if they do that, well, I can go back, right? But from my read of the statutes, the case is so watertight. And they just keep skirting the issue and avoiding it. And they haven't even referenced those statutes in their letters to me. And we're just having this back and forth correspondence. They've come back lately and they've said to me they're going to change my tax code in order to take the money that they say I haven't paid them. And I say, no, you're not. I've already paid this. Please demonstrate. Please provide me some proof that you're not bound by the Recognition of Trust Act. I have sent you a trust that's fully legally compliant, properly executed. Where do you go not honouring the statutes? You're a creature of statute. So that's where we're at right now.
So where is the money? Is it in limbo, or is it still in your bank account?
What I did was I kept 5% in a trust, in an envelope with the original deed, and I sent them a copy. I didn't send them any money. But now what's happened is that the conditions of the trust have been fulfilled, and it's gone to the secondary beneficiary.
Who happens to be you?
In this instance, yes, but it could be anybody. It could be you, it could be a charity, it could be antiwar.com or something, right? But and the way I look at it, James, is we got to do what we can. We got to do what we can, when we can, how we can, whatever we're comfortable with. My children never went to school. They were one's 21 yesterday, the other one's going to be 18 in a few weeks' time. They never ever went to school. And there was a time under, I think, Tony Blair's Labour government, the Badman Review, that they wanted to change the law to make it harder for families to home educate their children.
Mm-hmm.
And the home ed community are very, very disparate. There's the Christian home educators and the Muslim home educators and the Jewish and the Hindus, and they don't mix with the secular home educators, which is what we were doing. And some of them do school at home, and some of them do learning by play called unschooling, which is what we did. But what I noticed was people were doing what worked for them. I was very active in the anti-lockdown demo, so I'd go to London for those and take part in those and not wear a mask and hug my friends when I met them, even though, shouldn't hug people. The government guidance says don't hug people. But say, for example...
Now, you've killed loads of grandmothers. You have that on your conscience, but you'll get over it.
That's right. I'm sorry, James. The government doesn't tell me when I get to hug my grandma or not. That's between me and my grandma, right? Then, but the anti-war demos, whether it's the war in Israel and Gaza or whether it's the war in Ukraine, I don't go to those, not because I don't support them. It's just, I just don't. I support them and I take action through the tax protest. So, there are people who do what they do, like the Blade Runners, chopping down the LTN cameras. I don't do that. They do that. So I think we each find our own way of resisting. There are some people, unlike you and I, who never ever use debit or credit cards. It's always cash.
Yeah.
We find our own way of protesting.
On our own level.
At our own level. That's comfortable for us. That fits who we are. That fits who you are, James.
So, are you married?
I am.
Is your wife on board with this?
My wife is lovely, and she's fabulous, and she's a bit better behaved than me. And she said to me, "You do this, I'm not doing it." Right?
That I have to say, from a wife, that is quite a concession. That is very, very. That's a win for you.
I'm very fortunate. I have a fabulous woman.
That would be my. I think on the domestic front, it takes real balls to have to deal with those letters from people sort of hinting they might come and knock your door down to come and retrieve goods to the value of.
Well, they're not going to. Only bailiffs can do that. And for bailiffs, they'd have to go to court. And then to do that, they'd have to threaten to take me to court, because that's a whole lot cheaper than actually taking me to court. I mean, I do that as a social worker. If I've got concerns about your children, I'll try and work with you so your children stay with you and I don't have to take them into care. And then if it happens, look, it's looking really, really bad, James. It's looking really, really bad. We've got to work something out. Otherwise, I will go to court.
Before we move, I want to move on to that, but I want to cover off this. I like this tax. This
good, isn't it?
Trust thing.
James,
does the trust give you a limited amount of time?
Sorry, James. Say that again.
The trust obliges. The terms of the trust oblige HMRC to respond within a given time.
Yeah, which I can create, provided it's reasonable. I gave them 2 months. Some people do it from one tax year to another. I interviewed a guy on my channel who owns 2 hair salons.
Yeah.
And he said to his staff, "Do you want to do this?" And one hair salon staff said, "No, we don't want to do this." The other hair salon staff said, "Yes, we want to do this." So then what he did individual trust forms with each of the employees in that salon, where they gave him permission to withhold their tax. And he put it in a SCRAL account, separate. I think he put it in gold, because then HMRC can't take it. Right?
And they're not?
Gold. No, It's harder for them to seize physical gold than it is to go into a bank account. And then he did the same with his corporation tax and his VAT. Then at the end of the year, HMRC still hadn't threatened to take him to court, and they still hadn't demonstrated that their HMRC are not breaking the law. So then, according to the terms of the trust, his employees got their tax back. So they got 100% of their salary. All legally compliant. You know,
it sounds like I haven't obviously looked at your sites yet that talk about this. Are they quite thorough? They take you through all the
I've done a few interviews, and if you want, the guy that set this up, Chris Coverdale, he's an anti-war campaigner, and he hasn't, using this system, he hasn't paid his council tax for over 7 years.
But hasn't he done time and stuff?
Yeah, he did do time because the system that he was using before hadn't worked.
What was that?
I'm not sure of the details, right?
Because that would be quite a big thing. Saying like, yeah, use this system. Oh, by the way, I did do some time. I mean,
but not with the system that I'm talking about. This one has turned out to be successful. He tried other methods beforehand that didn't work, and then he goes, "I can't keep going to prison." Right? I mean, he did over 56 days in prison in all. Right? He said, "I can't keep going to prison. I got to find another way." And then he found this system. The UK government is a signatory to the International Conventions Against Terrorism, Funding Terrorism, and Against Genocide. Right? He found this system, and using this system, he hasn't paid his council tax for over 7 years. What happens, he tells me, is every year his council send him a tax bill. He sends them the trust documents. Every year, they zero his account, and come the next financial year, they send him a new demand. And he does the same thing.
Really?
And not once have they threatened to take him to court. Now, every single bit of money that the government collects directly or indirectly, TV license, parking fines, bus lane violations, capital gains tax, income tax, corporation tax, all the 200 odd taxes that we pay in some way or other, all of them go into what's called a consolidated fund.
Right.
And then from that consolidated fund, it gets dispersed. And then about 10% goes to the Ministry of Defense or whatever, and security services to be used. Some of that will be used for genocide, terrorism, war crimes, crimes against humanity. So then so you can say, roughly speaking, 10% of a bus ticket violation, 10% of a speeding fine, 10% of your TV license, because it all gets mixed up. A little bit like how my wife and I manage our finances. All our money's pulled together, and then we disperse it. Okay, that to pay that bill, that to pay that bill, for over there. It's the same deal on a much grander scale. So all I'm asking them is, look, can you demonstrate none of this money will be used for genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes, and acts of terrorism? Because that's unconscionable, and it's illegal and immoral and ungodly. I didn't say that. It's ungodly to them, right?
No, you don't need to sell all that side of things. We're with you there. We just want to know how you do it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's pretty clear. You follow the stuff on the website. I've got some videos on my channel, and I can arrange for Chris to guest with you if you're interested in picking into this with him.
I should cover this one sometime. Tell me, have you tried the trick where those things that your bank sends you, and you apparently got free money in your don't look puzzled. You're meant to help me.
I don't know what they are, James. But if you want to send me free money, anybody wants to send me
free money. No. Okay. So that you are a legal fiction.
Yes.
And we all apparently have this large sum of money sort of in our
birth certificate. Have you tried it, James?
Yeah, not with any success so far, I don't think.
Right. I think Richard Vobes. I don't know if he's been a guest.
That's what I mean. Richard Vobes.
Yeah.
Richard's been a great advocate of this, and I'm just interested to know who's had success with it, because obviously, I mean, if it's there, anything to defeat. I do sometimes feel like it's all a bit hopeless. Other than waiting for divine intervention, what can we do? Because they're also
James. It's not hopeless. We're going to go through a few years of shit, a few more years of shit, but on the other side of it, it is spectacular.
Rich, we're going to get horses wading up to their bridles in blood, and you're telling me that that's going to be a rough patch.
Yeah, we are going to go through a rough patch. We are going to go through a rough patch, but on the other side of it, it's pretty amazing. That's how I read of it.
Right. We can talk about that in a bit. I'm interested in your homeschooling. So how did you divide it up? Did Mum do it all? Did Dad do it all?
No. Well, one is what happened? What happened? So many years ago, a social worker mentioned it to me, home education. I thought, I've never heard of that. So I started looking into it. Now, you've got to know, my family are incredibly well educated. My brother is above a dean or above a professor, whatever that is, right? My grandfather was a professor. My mum taught MA English, literature. Everybody in my family's got degrees up the yin-yang, judges and doctors and lawyers and all that sort of stuff, right? So my family are very, very educated. We really value education. And then when this social worker mentioned it, I got curious. I'm very curious, and I started asking questions. And one of the questions I asked is, why did the British bring schools to India and South Africa and Australia? Because empire wasn't an exercise in philanthropy. It was an exercise in pillaging and theft and plunder.
Yeah, I'm with you now. I wouldn't have been like 15 years ago. I'd have thought, no, the British Empire was a wonderful thing. It made the world.
It was a wonderful thing. They killed 20 million Indians, and the Belgians killed 6 million Congolese, right? Yeah. And they hunted Tasmanian Aborigines and killed every last one as if they were animals. So why did the British bring schools? Because the last thing a ruling class want is an educated populace.
Yeah.
So then one of the things I did, I started asking teachers, well, how did schools come about? Teachers don't know. It's not in their curriculum. I looked at their curriculum. They don't know how it came about.
Yeah.
And schools came about in 1806, Napoleon's ragtag army routed the Prussians. Now, Prussia was very resource poor. The only way it had of amassing any wealth is through imperial conquest. And when the Prussians lost, it was like, oh my God, how are we going to make any money if we can't go and plunder and steal resources from other nations? And there was a philosopher, Johann Fichte, who lobbied the Prussian royal family and suggested they set up schools. He said, if we remove children from their families at a young enough age and have them engage in meaningless tasks, we will train them to listen to the state-appointed officials rather than the cries of their own parents and the guidance of their God. So they set up the school system, schools in Prussian.
Well, I mean, hang on just a second. There were schools that Shakespeare, or rather the Earl of Oxford or Francis Bacon, or whoever you want to believe, he talked about schoolboys in the Seven Ages of Man. So we had schools before then.
Yeah, I don't think, but I'm talking about state-sanctioned schooling.
You're talking about sort of state education, sort of invented by Bismarck to kind of create model citizens, that kind of thing.
Yes, by Fichte.
Okay, sorry, Fichte.
Johann Fichte, right? And then what happens was industrialists in the United States and France and Britain saw what was happening because those kids that went to those Prussian schools became highly disciplined and obedient and defeated Napoleon's army a few years later. And the industrialists said, okay, they lobbied, we're going to set up schools in our nations to train people to work, to not have independent livelihoods, to work in factories 6 days a week, 12 hours a day, making widgets without complaint. It also kills off competition, kills off creativity. And then what I saw was, okay, the British brought schools to India and Australia and South Africa and everywhere, and Kenya and everywhere else, to train the children. We are your lords and masters. Follow our gods, not your gods. Listen to us, not your parents.
Yes, I can see that. I can see the theory of that. But you're saying it really was that devastatingly effective when that camp tried it out.
It was that, and I'm sure, James, you will know, and some people here listening will know, is how boarding schools were used in Australia and Native America to remove children from their families, from their cultural heritage. To deny them the opportunity to speak their own language. A friend of mine was telling me how in Wales, that's right, last week, it used to be that children in school were hit if they used Welsh because they wanted to enjoy the Welsh language.
I've just been reading about this. They don't. You know why they didn't want them to learn to speak the Celtic languages, particularly Welsh? Well, I've been reading this very, very crap book about this. I mean, it's crap in that it's very appallingly produced. But the underlying history is very interesting. You know about Wilson and Blackett?
No.
Wilson and Blackett? Okay, amateur historians they were sort of at their height at about the 1980s, and they were researching all sorts of things. The history of King Arthur, who turns out to have been two kings. There were real British / Welsh analogues to King Arthur, and they got merged by legend later on. But Welsh speakers can understand Hebrew, and what the research of Wilson and Blackett and others indicates is that the supposedly lost tribes of Israel actually migrated and ended up, they spread over Europe, ended up some of them in Wales and in Britain, and you can see this in the language. They even used the interesting part of this book I'm reading. The interesting part is that they also deciphered Egyptian hieroglyphics using Welsh. It's a complicated story, but basically what it shows is that the Hebrew speakers of Moses and his people while in Egypt, they had their effect on the hieroglyphic. They obviously had a huge influence. So we in Britain are among the descendants of the 12 tribes of Israel.
Wow, that's amazing. They don't want people to discover their heritage. And
so yeah, they don't. They don't.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so schools are a tool of imperial control.
Yeah.
If I was going to design something, if you and I were going to start from scratch, nothing, and we were going to design something that's going to empower children and empower their education, it wouldn't be this. Because I also looked at how hunter-gatherers educate their children, and they just do it through play. You know, all mammals play. Every single mammal plays. And the larger the brain, the more of their life they spend playing. And then some of the smarter birds, like the corvids, crows, rooks, ravens, they also play. They play into adulthood. So play is connected to brain growth and intelligence. And school kills play.
So what did you decide? I mean, knowing all this,
yeah.
What did you decide your children needed to know and what they didn't need to know?
Well, they needed to know whatever they encountered as they lived life. So my son, when he was 11, bought a little bit of Bitcoin because he knows he knows how money works. He heard me talking. I would tell him about gold and silver and Bitcoin and fiat currency. They don't tell us that in school. He knows how that works. All they did was play and play and play and play and play. So when they were little, you know, they'd get up and just play Lego and stuff. And you know, when my son was 11, he decided to do his own car wash business in our street. So my wife did a profit and loss sheet for him and everything. He bought some equipment. He paid his sister and his sister's friends 50 pence each. He paid his mate £1 and charged £5 for people in the street. But for him, it was a game. And then when he was 16, 17, he got into trading and he tried that out for a bit and stuff. And then, you know, he did a little bit of work with some cryptocurrency projects and got paid in crypto. And he was able to devote himself to that which he was interested in. So there were periods where for months he would do nothing but skateboard with his mates. There were periods where he did nothing but ice skating, shorter periods during the winter.
He must have been quite good at skateboarding and ice skating by the end of it.
Yeah, he got really good, and horse riding, you know. And when he was, his sister started ballet when he was 6. He said, I want to do ballet. She said, you're not doing ballet. You're not doing ballet. We're doing all this with you. We're doing all this with you. We're doing all this with you. We haven't got the space to wedge in ballet classes for you. He banged on for a whole year wanting to do ballet. He stopped one of his other classes, gym class that he was doing, which was an after-school club or something, you know, that the local home ed community set up. And he started doing ballet. So he did ballet till he was 14. He loved it, absolutely loved it. And then when he was 14, he said, I've had enough of that. I'd like to go and do something else now. I wanted him to continue, but he didn't want to continue. And he said to me, he said, if I was at high school, I wouldn't be doing ballet because I'd have got teased.
Yeah.
But here he got to express himself freely. He learned, here's one. You take a child, James, that's developmentally capable of reading. All the bits of the brain are there, but they can't read. How long does it take for them to go from not being able to read at all to being like you and I, a self where we're proficient and we can teach ourselves further? You and I don't need any more reading lessons. We can teach ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how long does it take from nothing to being fully proficient?
I don't know.
Roughly? Any ideas? A guess?
Well, I remember going through the slightly laborious process of teaching my children to read using the phonics method. And I'd say it probably took about, I mean, by the time, it took me about a year
Right.
each. And they were, after that, they were good to go. They were just sort of, I didn't need to teach them anymore.
Okay. Well, on average, it takes 30 hours of one-to-one instruction, and my son did it in 8 hours. He was 8 years old. He said we read to him every single night, and took him to the library regularly. So he was immersed in books, surrounded by books.
Yeah.
And then he saw me reading, and his mum reading books. And one day when he was 8, he said, "I want to learn how to read." And my wife said, "Okay, well, let's ring up one of your dad's friends as a teacher." So he rang him up. My son rang him up, said, "I want to learn how to read. What do I need to do?" And the teacher friend said, "Well, choose a book you love and make a timetable with your parents and practice daily." He chose Rudyard Kipling's original Jungle Book because I'd read it to him twice. It's such a fabulous book. By the way, I refuse to read Disney rubbish to them and TV tie-ins. I said, you want Beauty and the Beast? I'll read you the original, not the Disney rubbish. Yeah. Right? He loved the Jungle Book. So did I. We read far too long, far too late in the night because it was such a good story. So he started with that, with little print and thee and thou, but he wanted to. It was intrinsic. And 15 minutes a day over 3 weeks, take him to the library. He's in the library, sitting in the corner, reading by himself. I never needed to give him another lesson. Because the trick is to move quickly when they're interested. Now, if we apply the same for mathematics, the entire mathematics curriculum, not knowing how to count, all the way through to the end of A levels, on average, 60 hours.
Really?
Yeah. So you got 90 hours, or you're able to read, and you've covered the entire maths curriculum. Well, what on earth is school wasting time for?
Well, when you put it like that, absolutely. So how did you structure it? Did you sort of sit around waiting for your children to tell you what they wanted to learn, or how did you?
They just played and played and played, and then we took them out. If I was going into town to go to the post office or something, I would take both of them on my bicycle on the tag along or the sit up, or my wife would take one, I would take the other. They just played. James, I remember how wonderful summer holidays were. I could just play and play and play and play. That was my kids' life day in, day out. There was one year, Boxing Day. We were in London visiting family. We took a flight on Boxing Day to Auckland, arrived there a couple of days later, spent 3 weeks in Auckland with a friend, then went to Australia, Melbourne, to another friend, then come back. That was the entire month of January.
And
they just played. We saw things, swam with dolphins.
Do you not get pressure from the authorities?
No, I know the law.
Oh, and so what do you do? What do you say?
So here's what the law is in England currently, and this Keir Starmer's government is out to change this quite brutally. Currently, it is a parent's duty to educate their children either by regular attendance or otherwise. We chose otherwise. And because my children had never been to school, they'd never been registered, we didn't have to do anything. I don't have to tell the local authority what I'm doing with my children, just like I don't tell the local authority I don't feed my children pork. It's none of the local authority's business. The local authority's I've been contacted by them with regards to my son. They didn't know about my daughter. My son had an accident, went to hospital. The hospital authorities told the education authority he's home educated. They got in touch with me, and I wrote them a philosophy of education, which is I said, look, this is what we're doing to cover his social skills, academic skills, numeracy, literacy, physical and spiritual. This is what we do now. Please go away. Then one time they contacted me, and then they wouldn't contact me for another year. And then one time they contacted me and they said, well, we would like to come and meet your son. We'd like you to bring him in the office. And I said, why? And they said, well, the director of social services, children's services in the local authority would like to meet all the home educated children. And I replied, do you have any evidence to suggest that my children are at risk of harm or are suffering, risk of significant harm or suffering significant harm? Unless you have that sort of evidence, I'm not going to come and meet with you. My job is to protect my child from the interests of strangers. So no, The children, they're my kids. They're my kids. In English common law, they're my kids. Go away unless you have evidence that I'm doing harm to them, and then I'll talk to you.
Mm.
And then Keir Starmer is out to subvert and destroy English common law.
Yes. And I did read about this, and he's going to get away with it, isn't he? Presumably. I mean, can they change the law?
They are looking to change the law up to a point, right? And just about the when you said about the non-fiction stuff, one of the things, I was born in Pakistan. My birth certificate is Pakistan. I haven't got my head around how it would that whole thing about legal non-fiction would work here. Even though Pakistan's inherited, well, the British exported their legal system, so it's based on English common law as well, right? But what they're doing here, the Children and Welfare Bill that's going through now, which is really to take care of children, because everything the government does is for our welfare and safety.
Yeah,
it'll pretty much make it impossible for for parents to home educate their children, because local authority officials will be able to determine whether or not those children are fulfilling whatever criteria they set, and there's no right of appeal. It's really draconian.
Can nothing be done to stop this legislation?
Well, I think the House of Lords are kicking up a stink, but the way that it's been played by the globalists is there is no opposition. When Rishi Sunak became Prime Minister, and by the way, I think Truss was doing a good job. I don't go.
No, funnily enough, I do as well. And weirdly enough, one of my, I used to do. Did you ever listen to a podcast I used to do with Toby Young?
No, I'd love to interview Toby Young if you could connect me.
Would you?
Yeah, I'd love to. I'm a member of the Free Speech Union. My son had a very interesting experience. They helped him out. So he was working. Let me just stop for a second. James, it's so good talking to you, because this conversation is going all over the place, right? I didn't know I was going to talk about this. So he was working for a restaurant chain.
Yeah.
And he was very reliable, very punctual, because that's the other thing about home educated children. Because they do what they're interested in, don't have to be corralled into it. He wanted to go and do. When he was 12, he said, I want to learn Mandarin. We said, okay. My wife is Scottish Christian, by the way. Okay, why? He goes, because China's a growing economic power and more people speak Mandarin than another language. Okay. So we found him a native Mandarin tutor in the city where we live. And he went for 4 years. He loved it, absolutely loved it. We never had to tell him to do the homework. We never had to tell him to go to classes, because it was intrinsic. He wanted to. Anyway.
How's his Mandarin now?
Well, he eventually went to college. I advised him against it.
Yeah.
But that was interesting. He said, I want to go to college. Said, you don't have to. You don't have to. You don't have to. No, I want to go to college. I don't want to go to college. You don't have to go to college. You don't go to college. Don't go to college. I want to go to college. Right. If you're going to go to college, you better study, because we're paying for your exams. So he went to college to study economics, maths, and programming. And after a year, he said to me, you were right. You were right. This is rubbish. They teach rubbish. The economics teacher actually thought that in the beginning that Ukraine was going to win the war. I had to correct him.
I like that as the metric.
Yeah. But also he said they don't understand inflation. They don't understand sound money. They're teaching me rubbish.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But he wasn't able to continue his Mandarin. So, you speak a language, you forget it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so at this restaurant chain, he just had this job, just cleaning. He didn't want promotion. He was just happy doing what he was doing. And there was somebody there who transitioned. And he refused to use their pronouns to whatever they transitioned to. I can't remember. He said, I'm a Muslim. By the way, I'm a very liberal Muslim. I went to Quaker meetings for 10 years. That's the kind of Muslim I am, right?
Right.
My son decided to become a Sufi. Great. Good. Okay. It wins me lots of brownie points with my family. They think I did it, and my wife did it. Right? Really, it was him.
A Sufi. What is Sufism exactly?
A spiritual tradition of Islam. That the jihad is internal. Don't pass judgment on others. It's the Quakerish type of Islam. It's not about war. Honor all people. We make our own journeys. It's the meditative tradition.
So it's like a sort of like being a monk, or not really?
Not quite. Although he's not quite a monk, but he's into living simply now, which he wasn't before, right? But anyway, he said, "Look, I'm a Muslim. God made man and woman. That's it, and we can't change that. We can't change God's creation."
Yeah.
So he got support from the Free Speech Union. And one of the ways I reach out to people is through ex-DMs, and Toby Young. I follow him, but he doesn't follow me, so I can't DM him. But I'd love.
Oh, I see. Well, I'll put you in touch. Yeah,
love that. I think what they're doing is really, really valuable work.
I'm glad they were able to help your boy.
Yeah.
I can't remember what. Oh, yeah, that's right. I was
interviewing him.
I didn't do interviews. I did this. I did this. I used to do this show with Toby, and we used to discuss current affairs. And there were various signs that the marriage was fracturing. But I remember one occasion where he started regurgitating the mainstream media narrative line on why it was that Liz Truss had to go, and that she was just basically this crazy incompetent, and the markets had judged her. They decided that. And I just thought, Toby, you are talking bollocks. You are repeating what all the idiots are repeating, what you've been told to repeat. This is the official line, and you haven't investigated, you haven't thought about it. She was sabotaged by the deep state,
by the City of London.
You don't understand that. You don't understand anything.
Yeah,
which is why I think you're a twat, and I'm going to end. It wasn't the only reason, but it was definitely. I remember it feeling quite strongly. I think, how can you sit there asserting in your kind of, well, of course, I speak to lots of insiders, and I know all this. No, you're talking bollocks. You're just a tool of the establishment. Anyway, rant over.
Okay. Well, when Sunak came to power, I said on several of my videos, he's going to do such a god-awful job that he's going to hand Keir Starmer an unassailable majority.
But he'd been chosen for that role. Well, she was meant to be shared.
Yeah, they were deliberately shared. I mean, him saying in the campaign, "Oh, we're going to bring in conscription," that's going to win you votes. Are you kidding?
Well, do you remember the humiliation ritual?
No.
Well, he had to do a conference or a farewell, something or other. He was left outside number 10 in the rain without an umbrella. Now, come on, they have access to umbrellas. The security services. He had to play out this. He had to be humiliated.
Yeah, absolutely, and definitely deep state. Planted by the deep state, the City of London, because one of the things that I noticed when lockdown started is now this might seem funny for me, James, right? I was born in Pakistan. Okay, I'm British, I'm an immigrant, first generation immigrant. But all of a sudden, all these Indians and Pakistanis in positions of power from nowhere. And these are from rich families in India and Pakistan. Hamza Yusuf, Varadkar in Ireland, Rishi Sunak. Okay, he's not, because he grew up, his mum in Southampton or whatever, right? But his wife, and then Priti Patel, and then some of the Bengali woman who's been done by for fraud or something in Bangladesh, right? They're all these high-powered, influential in South Asians in positions of power, and what that ties to, I think, is empire's hold on the elites. How come the British Empire has had the control that it's had for the time that it's had, this tiny, tiny island nation ruling over a quarter of the world's territory, is they did it through proxies. And then they're planting their proxies in Europe, in Ireland, in the UK, to do the deep state's bidding.
That doesn't sound at all implausible to me. So how does it work? These people are selected. What you mean? They need people from the Indian subcontinent or similar with the right sort of skin tone in order to appear.
I think they're just reliable proxies. I mean, I had the good fortune of interviewing George Galloway many, many years ago before he got really, really big.
Yeah.
And I asked him then, this would have been about shortly after, a couple of years after Brexit, before lockdown, long before lockdown. I said, how come all our politicians are so feeble? I mean, they're much worse now, James. I mean, where are the heavy hitters like Thatcher? Not that I was a fan of hers at the time, right? Although, please God, can we have her back? I'd rather her than these traitors, right?
Yeah.
Like Thatcher, like Peter Shaw, like Barbara Cartland, like Arthur Scargill, whether
Barbara
you
Cartland.
agree with them.
Here's a romantic novelist. Barbara, what was her name?
Well, I'm saying whether or not you agree with them, they were able to hold their own. They had acumen, they had skills. I mean, Starmer has nothing. He doesn't have any. Starmer. And what Galloway said is, look, they all rose through campaigning, through the trade union movement, through the political party movement. Through campaigning, genuine political campaigning. Whereas what's happened after Blair is the professionalization of politics. So they go to university and they get a job as an MP, right? And then because of the way the fiat currency works, the fiat system, it allows people who midwits, as Tom Longo says, complete midwits, like Ursula von der Leyen, like Friedrich Merz, like Macron, like Keir Starmer, like Rishi Sunak, who have no talent, no acumen, no skill, no expertise to be bribed and placed or blackmailed and placed into power, and they'll take it because that's their only way. They're not going to rise up because of their talents because they don't have any.
Yeah, that's very true. I hadn't sort of connected in quite yet. So Varadkar, there was Sajid Javid.
Yep.
You're right, a number of these characters appeared. Oh, what about, well, hang on, that really sinister woman that Hillary Clinton has, Huma Abedin.
Huma Abedin, yes. I mean, I don't know the state.
Is she Arab?
Don't know. But I certainly saw it in Europe, right? Certainly saw it in the UK and Ireland, right? Former colony, right? It's very, very clear. And then because that's what the British did. They nurtured local elites. They favoured particular groups, particular people, rewarded them, blackmailed them, bribed them into positions of power. And then they went into the whole divide and rule strategy, where you've got North Cyprus and South Cyprus. You've got Northern Ireland and Ireland, like Catholics and Protestants can't live together. You've got Pakistan and Bangladesh and India. You've got the way that they divided up the Middle East. So that the way they divided up Kurdistan, so it's in 4 different countries. So you have these festering sores that they can always use to create unrest and prevent people uniting. And this is, I do want to say this, right? I think you'd agree with me. And if you don't, well, we can have words, right? Now they're doing this through this bloody open borders policy, bringing in, I mean, what's happened to Ireland in the last few years or so? 20% of the population is now Muslim.
It's really, really frightening.
It's disgusting. You're destroying this beautiful, homogenous Christian nation by bringing in mostly Muslim men for whom there aren't jobs.
So who do you reckon's behind all this then?
Well, the globalists. There's the UN paper, I think it was in 2012, the UN replacement program.
Well, that was presumably originated in the Kalergi Kudenhof plan.
Right.
I mean, you must have read about him.
I know about the Kalergi plan. I haven't read about him. I've only gone as far back as the UN replacement program. And then, James, if you and I say anything about this, we're far right, white supremacists, racists.
Well,
divide and rule.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's bizarre that they can get away with it. I mean, they sort of make the occasional noise of it. Yes, Reform have been making noises about this, but no one's done anything about it.
Well, I don't trust Farage. City of London.
No.
City of London.
Heavens no. The man is a snake.
Yeah.
Where's Neil Rothschild anyway?
That I don't know.
No, he's well. No, he's...
Do you know, James, what's great about this conversation is how you and I fill in gaps. The others knowledge.
I spent too much time. I mean, when I say the Rothschild, I don't mean there are ways and means that I don't think necessarily the spawn of the Rothschild, but he's
connected to them. I get it. Absolutely get it.
Yes. Well, it's a bit like your children's homeschooling. When you've got this, I can go anywhere and look into anything, and you start picking up information, don't you? This kind of recondite information that you can then share with your nutcase tinfoil hat homies. And I suppose that's what you do as well. It's a fascinating experience, isn't it? Just realizing that everything in the world is a lie. Everything in the world is a conspiracy, and just trying to find out how the conspiracy works and who the people behind it are. For example, the other day, so I wrote a book called Watermelons about the climate scam, and I found out some stuff when I was writing. And I found there's an institution called the Club of Rome, and the Club of Rome is this think tank, which was founded to sort of promote the sort of the Malthusian sustainability green agenda. And I wrote about it. Its founders, one of whom was an Italian industrialist called Aurelio Pecce, and he was probably a billionaire industrialist. But what I hadn't realised when I wrote the book was that Pecce was just the bagman for Gianni Agnelli. So Gianni Agnelli had kept his name out of it. So Club of Rome founder Aurelio Pecce, but Gianni Agnelli was pulling the strings of this, or among those pulling the strings. What it showed me, this example, was how the real movers and shakers are often. They keep their names out of it. Oh, we know who Gianni Agnelli is because we do. But I mean, there are lots of people who are pulling the strings who we don't know about.
Yeah. And who is Gianni Agnelli?
You don't know who Gianni Agnelli is?
No.
Gianni Agnelli, Fiat. He was the industrialist. I don't know if he was the founder or was he was the hang on, let's have a look now. He's dead now. Gianni.
But he founded the Fiat car company.
Well, did he?
I don't know.
This is what I'm going to find out. Okay, so his father was an industrialist too, Edoardo Agnelli. His grandfather, Giovanni Agnelli, founded the Fiat Motor Corporation. You know why it's called Fiat? Well, Fiat means let it be in Latin, as in fiat lux means let there be light. Yes. So it was kind of an arrogant, like we are gods. But yes, Gianni family would be among the kind of people who run the world. They're probably bloodlines, I would suspect. There's bound to be some kind of bloodline. I mean, oh well. His mother was called Virginia Bourbon Del Monte. I suspect that if you've got Bourbons in your family, you are bloodlines. Anyway, you find these nuggets and you share them.
Yes, absolutely. Which is why I think what you and I do is so important. I mean, what else are we going to do? what else are we going to do other than spread the word and do what we can to wake people up and have people unite?
Yes. Well, so as a Muslim, albeit a kind of fairly slack one, you don't have the book of Revelation telling you how it all ends. What's the Muslim take on where we're going?
God, well, Muslims believe in the second coming of Christ.
Oh, fine.
Jesus is a prophet to us. We don't believe that he's the Son of God because God is divine and doesn't beget children.
So what happens with the second coming then? With your second coming?
I don't know. If there's any Muslims, please leave comments below, right? But we do believe that Archangel Gabriel will come and blow his horn, and there will be a second coming, and Jesus will come.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. So one way of looking at it, a very clumsy way, is there was the Quran is 3 books: the Book of the Jews, the Book of the Christians, and the final word on the matter. To settle all unanswered questions or whatever. And my wife thinks this is fabulously arrogant of Muslims, right? Like, James, you cannot convert to Islam. Do you know that?
Well, I'm not about to.
I know, even if you wanted to, right? You can only revert to Islam because the idea is that we were all born Muslims.
Oh, okay.
And then through no fault of your own, you were led astray.
Yeah.
No fault of your parents either, right? Because the same thing happened to them, so you can only revert, go back to your natural state. And then the other thing that I've learned recently, and you may know more about this, is how the British imperial elites created ISIS and Al Qaeda and Wahhabism and Taliban. That form of extreme, fundamentalist, hostile, aggressive Islam to supplant the Sufi tradition and then use it to stir up conflict. And at the same time, I think, I've not looked into this, right, but I have a hunch the Schofield Bible was also a creation of the British imperialists to gen up and create this entity of Christian Zionists, that somehow Jesus would be okay with the murder of Palestinians in Gaza because it will lead to the return of the Messiah. No, to me, Jesus wasn't about that at all. And then you have Christians supporting the Zionism movement, which I'm absolutely certain was a British imperial project, in order to take this territory, which under the Caliphate, under the Ottomans, was ruled as one entity. Okay, we're going to put this festering sore of Zionists in the middle that we're going to support so that we can keep the other groups fighting amongst themselves and with them so they don't unite against us. And in the midst of that chaos, we can extract gas and oil.
I like this theory, and I find it very persuasive up to a point. What I find that it doesn't engage with is the supernatural level of all this. That is interesting. It's a bit like when you listen to Matthew Ehret, for example. I don't think he really believes in supernatural forces. Did you ever follow Matt Ehret?
I'm not very, but he's connected to the LaRouche organization, I think.
Yeah.
I have Harley Schlager, who's the president of LaRouche. He comes on my channel once a month, and we do some political analysis with him and Alex Craner.
Yeah, well, okay.
And I've had Richard Poe on my channel talking about how the British invented communism.
Yeah, so he read that book, didn't he? How the British invented something and blamed it on the Jews or something.
Yes. Yeah.
How the British invented communism
and blamed it on the Jews.
Great title. I think that. Would you believe in supernatural forces or not?
I do, James. I'm going to tell you, I'm a little bit wary of telling you, but I will tell you, right? Because as a Muslim, one is I don't believe in reincarnation. Muslims don't believe in reincarnation, and it is, this is God's word, and we do this, right? But at the same time, I'm open to other ideas, like the Hindu Yuga cycles, like Vedic astrology and regular astrology, like psychic phenomena. I'm open to it. There's so much more that we don't know, that I don't know, that I don't understand. There's so much more to discover. And where I'm wary is I don't want to come up against, sort of whatever your Christian faiths are, because sometimes people can be quite hard and fast about them, which is one of the things that appealed to me about Quakers. In 10 years of attending, I was never asked to become a Quaker, and then I was a Muslim. They're fabulous.
Yeah, but they do believe some awful bollocks about it. The Quakers have been some of the worst in promoting the climate change scam.
Yes.
Really bad, actually.
Lost in that regard.
They are lost.
They're a bit annoying Easter.
They are. They're a bit like, oh, yeah, we're Quakers, we're lovely people. I've had some of the nastiest shit said to me by Quakers. So yeah, on the climate change front, their Quakerishness disappears the moment they talk about climate change. The niceness.
Yeah. Okay, I've not had that experience, fortunately. Yeah. But just on the climate change, here's what I would say: anybody who's watching this and still believes that carbon dioxide is the thing that's going to tip us over and kill us all, I would invite you to go and actually look at the counter argument. People don't. They just don't consider the counter argument. They just think it's this way. And then, for me, I assume you know what fractals are, James.
Tell me what fractals are.
Self-repeating patterns.
Right, yeah.
At different scales. So Norway, the coast of Norway, whether you're looking at it from outer space or whether you're standing there looking at it between your feet, and every scale in between is always crinkly. It's that pattern of crinkliness that repeats at scale. Well, human behavior occurs in fractals. So one of the things I deal with is domestic abuse. So it might now, women engage in domestic abuse and they do it kind of differently and men do it, right? But here's how men would typically do it. I'm going to tell you what you can wear. I'm going to tell you when you can go out. I'm going to tell you who you can meet with, how long you can go out for. And it's all for your own good. Don't worry having it about an independent job. I'm going to give you a bit of pin money and I'm doing this for your own good. That's one way that men control women. It's also what the government was saying to us during lockdown. It's the same conversation. It's the same at a larger factual scale. Now, one of the things for me as a social worker, I've never seen child abuse happen. Never, ever seen it happen. But what I do is I look at it from this angle, what's happening in that family from this angle, and I look at it from this angle, and I look at it from this angle, and I look at it from this angle, and this angle, and this angle, and this angle, and try and triangulate it all and come up with a picture. And I look for red flags. So one of the red flags with regards to that very famous medical intervention that just about everybody in the whole world knows is there were loads of red flags about it. And then with regards to, we had to get onto this. There was something we were talking about before about the Zionism.
Yeah.
There are red flags that point to the British Empire, because it fits their pattern of behavior: divide and rule, support and foster a small minority, give them favorable treatment, empower them in order to control the others.
Yeah, I agree. You can see their modus operandi, and it's the same as the Roman Empire, divide and rule, and I get all that. But when I see techniques being described without, okay, there's one level which you say they use these techniques because these techniques work. These people are very power-hungry individuals. They think they're born to rule. They like being rich. They like running the world. They think they're better qualified than everyone else. It doesn't really answer the question about why they're into having sex with 3-year-old children and harvesting them for adrenochrome. It doesn't really answer why these people are so interested in sacrificing children to Satan. It doesn't really answer why they're so into occult rituals. You see what I mean? There's a dimension which, unless you're looking at those dimensions, you are failing to answer the bigger question, which is, who are these people? Why do they do what they do? Because they're not normal. Yeah. And I think saying, oh, it's the British Empire, is a bit like saying, oh, it's gravity. Well, yeah, it may be this term that you've invented to describe a phenomenon, but it doesn't actually explain anything.
Fair point. But I think the British Empire is not just one discrete organization. There's all these other influences, and it could be, you're talking about the elite, pointing to the elite royal families in Europe that have held sway over the world, and how they want to continue plundering other parts of the world in order to extract resources. Why do they want to do that? Because that's what they do.
Yeah, I think this is where you lose me.
Yeah,
it's more than just what they do.
Sure, I don't have an answer. I've heard adrenochrome is incredibly addictive. It may be, they really, really do believe. They really do believe that that's the way, that that's the right path, whatever the Satanist religion is, right? Worshipping, I don't know, what do you
think you want to know?
Sorry? There are some areas, there is so much to look at. There is so much insanity and mendacity going on. I haven't explored all corners of it.
Yeah, it's not. I can see that this is an area which could absorb mental capacity that might be better spent on learning more about the evils of fractional reserve banking or exactly how to fight back against the taxman. I get that, but at the same time, it seems to me that there is a whole school of it's the British Empire, and it's fine up to a point, but until you deal with the supernatural element, you're really kind of playing around.
I think
because you're not getting to the root of the problem.
Yeah, no, I think your point is absolutely valid, and I can see in terms of my own political growth and development that I've been getting deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, looking more and more up the chain of command, and I haven't got to that point. And one of the things that I have had to deal with myself is how unpleasant it is. I don't want to look into child trafficking. I don't want to look into the ritual abuse of children, and there's a revulsion to it, an abhorrence. Right, so that's something that I had to deal with. I recently recorded a video with Lieutenant Colonel Steve Murray, who works for US Army Intelligence, and he was describing to me about red rooms, and we talked about how there are Epstein operations all over the world, right? And I know a bit about Jimmy Savile. I knew about Jimmy Savile when I was 19, and what he was up to, and I believe that was an MI5 operation. And I know a little bit about Moloch and stuff like that. I just haven't delved into it yet, and I'm not taking away the validity of your argument. I think your point is solid.
Yeah,
and I'm willing to listen. Please tell me.
No, I just think it's the flaw in the it's the British Empire argument. It's not.
I think merely you're pointing to a layer above it, another layer. Of control. Yes,
that's all. That's
absolutely.
All.
Absolutely.
And I think, anyway, what I want to ask you is, how on earth did you get to do your job, to be a child? I mean, you're working with authority, with local government. The very people that you people like us think are sort of awful minions of this terrible deep state, subject to all things like political correctness and how on earth did you get to do this stuff?
Well, so when I was 7, I was molested by the father of a playmate. I made a decision as a 7-year-old, very smart decision, don't go near men. Makes sense, right? And then the first girl I fell in love with and the previous girlfriend were both being sexually abused by family members when they told me when I was 19. And I'd forgotten about what happened to me, and I decided to help them out. They were clearly distressed. And I managed to help them out by referring them to a particular charity that supported women and children who had that experience. And then I was supporting a friend whose father was an alcoholic. I grew up in a household where nobody drank. So I was going to AA and Al-Anon meetings to try and understand alcoholism to help her out. And then she said to me, have you thought about becoming a social worker? And I said, I don't know what that is. So she got me a leaflet, and this seems a bit interesting, helping people out who are suffering. So that was my entry into it. That was my entry into it, and I completely get what you're saying. That it is how, especially nowadays, how ridiculously brutal local government is with the government's devolution plan, which is actually not devolution, it's centralisation. However, the Children's Act, 1989 Children's Act, is an absolutely fabulous piece of legislation. It was cross-party consensus. It wasn't like, the Tories are going to push their agenda, Labour are going to push their agenda. They got their heads together and said, look, there's child abuse goes on. What can we do that's the best thing for the children? And they came up with what I've been told by a human rights lawyer is one of the best, if not the best, pieces of legislation in the world. It's been copied the world over. And that's why it's not flawed, right? And then the way I look at it is, right now, I'm dealing with this kid. What can I do that's going to make a difference to this kid? Because, tragically, child abuse goes on. Domestic abuse goes on.
I get that. What is it not often even worse for the children put in care than it is the ones? I mean,
sometimes it can be. It can be, right? But it's a really, really fine line. It's a really, really fine line. And I've been doing this pretty much full time for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
How many children do you think I've removed?
What, removed from their families?
Yeah, and placed in foster care. 5 years full time social work.
10? 2, 20? 2, really?
2, that's all. The way the media present it, that we go in and steal children and remove them and everything, it's really, really difficult to remove children. It's really, really difficult. And it's only as an absolute last resort. And if, God forbid, I was end up as your social worker and your children are younger, right? There's all these stages we go through to try and keep the children with you. And then if something doesn't happen, it can't work out with you and your wife. Well, okay, what about their grandparents? What about aunts and uncles? Are there any cousins? We always look to the family first.
And what is the most common thing? Is it relatives sexually abusing children?
Domestic abuse.
Which means what? You mean the wife's being beaten up? Or
usually the woman, because one, that's a lot more easy to spot, because men will use their testosterone and will cause bruises.
Yeah.
Right. Women are far more manipulative. The difference between their estrogen about it, as Ian Berdigan talks about, right? They're manipulative, coercive, controlling. It's not so easy to spot, right? But domestic abuse, and it might be, for example, a guy who beats up the mum while baby is asleep in the next door. Baby's asleep, they'll say to me, he only ever hits me when the baby's asleep. No, it still messes the children up, messes up their brain, and the damage shows up later on in life often, if not then. It is the worst. Men get trained, and that's how you relate to women, and women get trained, well, that's what it's like to be in a relationship. And sexual abuse is really harmful. Sexual abuse is really difficult. It's really difficult to spot and prove. Very, very difficult. Sexual abuse is really harmful. Emotional abuse, like, for example, swearing at a child or belittling them all the time, neglect, depriving them of food, nutrition, or anything else that they need for their development. And the other one, physical abuse, beating a kid. There's one case I worked with this 7-year-old boy had been beaten by his dad the day before with an electric flex, and the plug was still attached to the flex. And I was like, what the fuck? Who does that to their kid? You beat a 7-year-old kid with a plug. attached to a flex, you whip him. And then he mentions it, the kid mentions it to his friend at school, who then tells the teacher. And that's how we find out. Domestic abuse, children being exposed to domestic abuse, even where they are directly treated them as well, they are treated well in all other respects, is as harmful as sexual abuse or emotional abuse, neglect or physical abuse, produces the same outcomes in children. Now, is the children's services, social services, is it perfect? Absolutely not. Are mistakes made? Absolutely. Are there people in this industry who are abusive and nasty? Yes, because they're human beings everywhere. But how I square it is, look, abuse goes on. What am I going to do? It's a labour of love for me.
So you must be a bit brighter than the average social worker, no?
James, I don't know. It might be.
Do you not meet them?
Well, I don't know if I'm brighter. I think there's more agreement. You know, I worked in one local authority when they were talking about bringing in the mandates that you could, it's like we might have to go into I might have to produce a vax pass in order to get into the council building. And I was terrified. I'm not going to have that shit inside me. I'm just not. Then how am I going to provide for my family? And most of my colleagues had those novel medical treatments. I refused, and I got scared. I wouldn't even talk about it.
Gosh.
Because, the way we were treated as pariahs, and in that environment, which is, it's very woke. They all bloody read The Guardian and think The Guardian.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm getting at. It must be quite weird for you. You must be a fish out of water.
Well, James, I'm a fish out of water in so many respects. I'm a council official that didn't send their children to school. I'm a Muslim that went to Quaker meetings. I'm a Punjabi that doesn't eat naan, who have been high-fat, low-carb for 12, 13 years, right? Okay, fine. My parents were homeopaths. I'm just not going to shift on this. In my body, my choice.
That's a shame about the naan. You don't eat anything, chapatis. What do you eat? Bread? I mean, meat.
I eat a lot of meat. So much as meat and eggs, raw milk kefir. I went to Pakistan a few years ago. I rang my aunt in May. I said, look, I'm coming in June. She said, Betty, are you mad? Coming in June? It's 45 degrees. You'll die in the heat. Auntie, mangoes. Okay. So I was there in June. I ate meat and mangoes because they're dirt cheap and really delicious. So meat, fruit, honey, eggs.
See, now, I'm going to say, now we've got to the bottom of why your skin is so good.
And sunlight. You've got to have lots of sunlight. Do you burn, James?
Well, do you know what? This is boring. For those who know, I used to be absolutely obsessive about applying sun cream, because if I got a tiny bit, missed a tiny bit, I would sometimes burn, and I would really upset me. I used to hate getting sunburned, and then in the last 5 years, I had this epiphany when I realised that sun cream is the enemy; it's not your friend. And so I started doing stuff like wearing a hat in the peak, at midday, but generally not wearing sunscreen or sun cream as we call it, and not trying not to go out at stupid times of day. So if you're going to go for a swim, particularly in the early stages of holiday, go in the morning before the rays are getting really bad. Don't go for an hour swimming at midday because you're going to get burned. And also I found that not eating seed oils as well makes a difference.
Yes, I've heard that. I've heard that in the paleo community, people give up seed oils and they stop burning. But I go out in the sun at the hottest part of the day. I've been on the beaches in Qatar when I worked there many years ago. 52 degrees in the shade. I'm on the beach in my shorts. I don't burn. I get hot, so then I'll go after half an hour. I'll go into a shower. It's cool down. Then I'm back out on the beach. When the sun is at its highest, is when the skin synthesizes vitamin D.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So don't burn. To go out when the sun is at its highest. Get as much flesh exposure as you can without burning. My wife, black hair, fair skin, she makes in a couple of minutes what will take me hours to make. Right? But she burns real easy.
Right.
The other thing, and this is according to Dr. McCullough, and I do this, is if you've been out in the sun and you've exposed your face and your chest to the sun, don't use soap for 24 hours on those areas because that inhibits the production of vitamin D.
I don't use soap.
Okay, good. People watching, you're finding out all sorts of information.
When I go for poo, I can wash my hands.
Yes, of course.
I don't want people to be frightened off when they come out for dinner. But generally, I don't use soap. No.
Don't need to. Absolutely. Apart from, I use it for my armpits.
No, I don't. Because actually, what happens after when you stop using it? I haven't used soap under my armpits for 25 years.
Really? That's amazing. I'm going to try that because what I do, come out the shower, I will pat my armpits with bicarbonate soda or salt if I haven't got any bicarbonate soda. And what that does, it stops the bacteria breeding. And I heard about this. Thought, let me try this out on a hot summer's day. I tried this, cycled all day long, came home, passed my wife's sniff test.
So when did you put on the bicarb?
After the shower.
Yeah.
Wet my fingers, wet my armpits, and put bicarbonate soda under the armpits. It's safe, it's natural. None of those nasty chemicals you get in deodorants. I don't even need to use any natural deodorants or antiperspirants. It doesn't stop the body sweating. It just stops the bacteria breeding. And sea salt does the same thing. It just stings a little bit.
Right.
So just try that, James, and then invite your mum to. Sorry, not your mum. Invite your wife or anybody else. Really sniff your armpit after a day.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm sure that if we carried on chatting, we find loads and loads of things. I've sort of decided that an hour 30 and an hour 40 is about my optimal podcast time.
No problem.
I tire after that. And I've really enjoyed talking to you. I'm sure we can go in all sorts of other different directions.
We could, James. I exercise 5 to 6 times a week every morning. I cycle. I go swimming occasionally. Not in swimming pools, but in the sea or in my friends. My friends built a sustainable pond, self-cleaning pond.
Oh, nice. I like those. Yeah.
It's really good. Go there. So you've got to exercise, and you've got to cut out wheat in particular. Wheat is evil.
Is it?
Wheat is particularly evil. If you look up the work of Dr. William Davis, forget the name of the book. Wheat belly. Wheat is evil. And
because short version.
So wheat in the Middle Ages used to be 4 foot high.
Right.
It's been genetically modified by all sorts of means that it's only like a couple of feet high, because that's easier to farm and more productive. It doesn't fall over in the rain. But in the process, it's become so denatured and toxic that it's not good for us.
Right.
It produces celiac disease, and there's no cure. There's no medication that can treat celiac disease. It causes holes in the gut. There was an essay I read by a health, the worst mistake in the history of the human race. And I thought, the Kalashnikov, the internal combustion engine, nuclear weapons. No, the guy said agriculture. It gave us calorie-rich, nutrient-poor foods. And I thought, let me try this out. So I tried it out. Had all sorts of health improvements. I've been vegan. I've been vegetarian. I've food combined. I've done a raw food diet. I'll try it out. And then.
So your thing now is you eat lots of meat.
Yes, I try to avoid vegetables.
Steak.
No, I'm Pakistani. Lamb curry.
Oh, so you eat curry?
Oh yeah. Oh my God. Yes. I have to.
And who makes the curries? You or your wife?
I do. But I make the curries. My Scottish wife taught me how to make really great Pakistani curries because she learned from an aunt.
Will you send me your curry recipes?
James, I will, and I can. Well, here's a tip. I can send you a curry recipe.
Yeah.
Here's what you do: go to ChatGPT or Grok or YouTube or Google, and put in either of these words: DESI, Desi, which means our people. It's an Urdu Hindi word, means our people. So if you want, you chicken, you eat lamb.
Yeah, I like lamb and chicken.
Okay, so you put Desi lamb curry.
Okay.
Or I'm from Lahore. Put in Lahori, Lahori.
Yeah.
Lamb curry. Lahori palak paneer. Lahori chicken curry. Desi fish masala.
So you put in all the stuff. You just don't have. Do you have rice with them or not?
No, I don't. I just eat meat and fruit. And there's nothing wrong with vegetables. I just don't particularly like them. Can you eat vegetables?
I've got waiting in the fridge for tonight. Is this a sort of mughal recipe that I do with chicken with almonds, which you must have cooked occasionally.
I don't know. I mean,
ground almonds. It's good. It's a very rich curry recipe. But I do like a good lamb curry.
Yes, I only know home cooking, and in my house it was just all food, kind of food. So, and my mum was a great cook.
Well, you are looking, Rich. You're looking freakily good on it. I mean, it's to the point where I noticed. And I say, how old are you?
I'm 60.
When's your birthday?
It was in March.
It's my 60th birthday's just gone. And I think people looking at us would think that you're a bit younger than me. And
I think you're very, very, very generous and kind.
I could do some of your hair as well.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, it's so funny. I wish my hair was black, but hey ho, it goes this way.
No, it's a good colour.
Yes. I mean, the other thing I started taking a testosterone supplement in November, a herbal testosterone supplement. I came across it. I thought I'd try it out because I will try stuff out if I think if it's safe. I'll try it out. So I took a testosterone supplement, and I actually have an affiliate link for it. And after about 3 months, my wife noticed and started complaining that I was being a nuisance.
Okay, well, that's interesting. So if you've got an affiliate thing, you obviously are a fan of it.
Oh yeah, it's worked. It's really worked.
It's made with vegetables.
It's herbs and things, herbs and spices and stuff, right? But James, do you do any strength training?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Because we have to do strength training as we get older. We absolutely have to, because it's how the body generates new cells.
Okay.
We have to do intermittent fasting. I fall off the wagon. I'm usually 1 meal a day, or I might, I have done something like a 5-day fast, just water, right? Mm-hmm. We have to do that as we get older because it helps get rid of old cells and replace it with new cells. Promotes human growth hormone. As we get older, we've got to do. I've done a lot of personal development work through a company called Landmark. Loads and loads of it. They do a foundation course in Landmark for, and I did loads and loads of work. I learned loads, and I did one of their health and fitness courses over 30 years ago or 29 years ago and something. And what I got interested in is exercising now, not to fix because there's something wrong with my body. Like I think there's something wrong with me, I'm too fat, all of this, right? But how healthy do I want to be for the future? What model do I want to set? What example do I want to set my children? How healthy do I want to be when I'm 80? Which is a very different context to exercise from.
Yeah. You're going to be a great 80-year-old. Rich, tell us where we find you and find your stuff. And
well, you can follow me on X, CryptoRichYT. Please watch out for copycats and scammers all the way. Anybody who want to copycat me, I have no idea. But there you go. CryptoRichYT. I'm also on ODYSEE, on Rumble, on Podbean, on FreeSpeak, which is a decentralized, fully decentralized platform.
What's it called?
FreeSpeak. FreeSpeak.tv, fully decentralized on the blockchain. I'm on BitChute, but you have to use a VPN to access BitChute if you're in the UK.
Yeah.
Because the government wants to keep us safe.
Yeah, they can.
Yeah, and also on YouTube. And I do cover crypto. I started off with a crypto channel, but I do a lot of politics and economics, geopolitics stuff nowadays.
Right. I think that's it, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I'll have it because it's going to go on my channel eventually.
Oh yeah. So obviously, viewers and listeners, both those from Crypto Rich as well and from my world, I hope you enjoy this podcast. Do subscribe to my stuff. Do consider supporting me on Substack, on Locals. Support my sponsors. Buy me a coffee. And thanks for listening. Watching.
Thank you, James. Boost your testosterone naturally and rev up your engine with Immense Boost. bit.ly/CryptoRichBoost and order your testosterone boost today.